Because foxes are not common in the United States, Americans don't usually see them. However, it's a different story in England as they have a large number of them. These poor creatures have nowhere to go since humans have started to occupy places near the area's forest. A fox in the backyard is nearly unavoidable for anyone living near the woods. Despite the fact that it sounds absurd and nearly impossible, it's true. In fact, foxes have been known to befriend people. That's crazy enough, but it gets weirder. Some foxes may even share the food they receive from their human companions with another cute animal species. Again, seeing a fox running down the street in England is not something that's out of the ordinary. These animals are almost everywhere, and English people have become accustomed to them, especially at night. It's very natural for a fox to dig a hole in the backyard or jump into it. However, most people are still surprised to learn that these animals are friendly, not only to humans but as well as other animals. They get along well with other creatures. It's only natural that these individuals want to feed the foxes since they have to live so closely with them. Wildlife officials also said that feeding foxes are beneficial because they are unable to hunt for themselves. This means that they might die if they don't get food. Because many houses have been constructed near the forest, these poor foxes are unable to hunt their own food. As there is less territory for foxes to roam, there are fewer items for them to consume. Therefore, they must find food elsewhere. But where did these incredible images come from? Many people in England have experienced problems with foxes coming in late at night for a snack. However, this woman opted to capture the amazing creature when an interesting thing took place. Lucy Gocher lives in England, and each night she is visited by a few foxes. She is the one who took these incredible photographs. The foxes prefer to come to her because she feeds them. Lucy, of course, feels awful for them. Given their situations, these poor creatures can't feed and hunt for themselves. This means they could starve to death. This is why Lucy made it her mission in life to never let these foxes be hungry again. Whenever she said food to give away, she made sure her little friends would be full. According to Lucy, most people have a negative perception of foxes. They are, nonetheless, exceedingly gentle animals. They don't attack humans, and they only want to eat the food and then return to their wooded homes. Lucy had been feeding her fox friends for quite some time. She neglected to put the food in the bowls that she had left outdoors for them one day. Of course, the foxes were quick to notice and responded in a way that stunned her and everyone she told. Because the foxes became used to being fed at the same place every night, they were confused when they could not find their food. When they found out that there was no food, one of them decided to be proactive and tapped on her back door. Isn't that amazing and insane all at once? However, that wasn't all. Lucy frequently shares this story with others to show how interesting foxes are. As seen in cartoons, they are depicted as cunning, although they are just like people. They require some love, care, and tasty food. Because the fox knocked on Lucy's door, it must have realized there was a problem and they needed to tell her. In other words, they did that to tell her that they were hungry and that she had forgotten to bring food. What would you do if you discovered a fox in your garden, patiently waiting to be fed? You might believe you're dreaming. At Lucy's house, though, this is a typical occurrence, but she rarely forgets to feed her new pals. Naturally, word went out that Lucy was a fox's best buddy. She actually wondered if they ever chat about the good human who always leaves food for them. It actually didn't take long for other creatures to hear about the news, whether the foxes knew how to communicate or not. Every night, Lucy began to get new visitors. Of course, the foxes were entertaining enough, but one beautiful animal decided that it, too, needed some assistance in finding food. Maybe like an animal, you might think that Lucy's backyard is the greatest spot to eat. Which animal has opted to join the fox family? This cute little hedgehog heard about the St. Lucy, who fed homeless animals. He decided to pay her a visit because she was giving away free food. When Lucy noticed this small little hedgehog trying to reach into a bowl for some yummy meal, she couldn't believe her eyes. She began taking images in a frenzy. Of course, if it just falls into your lap, you might do the same. She began to think about the small hedgehog. Were they all friends? Lucy looked puzzled. She didn't know much about foxes or hedgehogs, so she figured it would be a good idea to learn more about them. What occurred next astounded me. Because the big foxes were around, this small hedgehog was initially afraid to come and feed on the bowl. Despite his dread and uncertainty, Lucy could see he was hungry, and it didn't take long for him to overcome his fears. All of a sudden, the hedgehog summoned all of its bravery and began arriving early to feed before the foxes arrived. He didn't make it in time, and the foxes appeared precisely on cue. Lucy was anxious and unsure, and she was holding her breath. It's nearly impossible to believe what happened afterward. Rather than forcing the hedgehog out of the way, the fox can be seen waiting for its turn to eat from the tasty dishes. Isn't it strange that a giant fox would stand around waiting for a small hedgehog? But wait, there's more. Of course, this little guy was ravenous. He spent a long time finishing his dinner, but the fox never moved any closer. We're curious as to how exhausting it is to sprint through the forest all day, especially considering this little guy was so hungry. You have to wonder how Lucy feels about feeding such a large number of wild creatures. It's sweet of her to feed them all dinner, but I'm sure it adds up on her monthly grocery expenses. Yes, we believe so. Lucy doesn't mind feeding the animals because they don't consume a lot of food. It's almost as if you're feeding a few stray dogs or cats. These animals, of course, eat practically whatever she puts out, so they're not picky. The small hedgehog is what concerned Lucy the most. She enjoys having him around the house, but she is concerned about the foxes becoming enraged and attacking him. This little man has no method of defending himself against the foxes. She didn't have to be concerned, though. She was once watching the animals feed. The foxes awaited their turn till the hedgehog was finished. One fox, however, became too hungry to wait any longer. Of course, Lucy stiffened up and feared whether her little hedgehog pal was going to get killed. She had no idea that the tall fox and the little hedgehog would not face off. In fact, it was the other way around. The fox had no desire to fight. All she wanted was to make a new friend in the hedgehog. Foxes are naturally inquisitive creatures. As you can see from the photo, this cute fox wants to learn more about the hedgehog. Do you have any idea how the tiny hedgehog responded as the fox approached closer and closer to him? Continue reading to learn more. It's understandable to believe that a fox and a hedgehog are unlikely to get along. One is far larger and may cause serious harm to a little animal. When foxes are hungry, they have the tendency to harm other creatures. What may have been going on in the head of the hedgehog? Did he ever think he would be eaten or injured? He didn't seem to notice the fox, but moments later he quickly understood he wasn't the only one at the food bowl. What happened after such a realization? As incredible as it may appear, these two wild animals get along swimmingly. Lucy exhaled a sigh of relief and now marvels at how the two animals came to be such good friends. They began eating at the same time every night. What about the other foxes, though? You'd think the other foxes would decide that they didn't want to wait their turn, but they never did. While the hedgehog and fox ate their dinner together, the other foxes calmly waited in the background. Lucy marvels at how advantageous such a friendship is to them both. Because her fox buddy always defends him, the hedgehog no longer has to be afraid of the foxes. As a result, the fox can feed whenever he wants without having to wait. That isn't the most astonishing aspect of the story, though. In truth, this unexpected friendship would not have happened if it hadn't been for Lucy. It all began with a little act of compassion on her side, and she still feels pleased when she remembers it. Lucy decided one day to feed the wild creatures in her area for free. She did it out of kindness, not for fame or wealth. However, she has witnessed the fox and hedgehog form an unbelievable bond as a result of this. How about the other foxes? Do they ever get to eat? We're not sure why these foxes never advanced. Perhaps the first fox was the leader. It doesn't matter because neither the fox nor the hedgehog was greedy. They made sure that there was enough for everyone left to eat. Lucy has tried several foods for the animals. She attempted to feed the foxes sausages, but they simply took them and ran. This surprised Lucy, but she also found it funny at the same time. Lucy found it interesting watching them eat. She could be sure they were the ones who got the meals because they did the work. She wanted to make sure they were full before leaving her house. Lucy had bowls made that said Miss Fox because it was foxes at first. Despite this, the hedgehog continued to eat until he was satisfied. He doesn't seem to mind, perhaps because he can't read. Regardless, he devours the contents of the fox's bowl. The foxes and hedgehogs, of course, enjoy their supper. What they eat doesn't seem to matter as much as who they encounter along the way. They've all become accustomed to it, but the small hedgehog is a social butterfly who enjoys making new friends. This little hedgehog, who is the kindest and most courageous animal imaginable, has made friends with a fox and is now getting along swimmingly with Lucy's pet cat. It simply goes to show that if you take a chance, you can make friends with anyone. We're all familiar with the idea that different types of animals don't get along, maybe most famously mice, and cats and dogs. Maybe it's because of cartoons like Tom and Jerry, but the truth is that this isn't always the case.